everyone. I'm Megan Litke. I'm Director of Sustainability for American University.
This one work? Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Iverson. I'm an assistant professor in the Sociology department. Thank you for coming. Excited to see everyone.
And I'm Chris Tudge, biology. This is my building. Welcome to it. We love it.
So today we're going to talk about using AU's campus as a community building tool. Stand up for a minute. Here are our learning outcomes. We're going to walk through a couple of projects that we've done on campus to give you all the tool to identify a few projects that have happened to build community across campus. We'll talk about evaluating the campus's needs to find opportunities to build community. And then we'll have a little group exercise to look at designing and coming up with the process to propose projects or programs that could bring faculty, staff, and students together implementing solutions. So today we're going to start by defining community, looking at what that means just in terms of the general context. And then since I'm here, also how it connects to sustainability, why I'm here. We'll look at the examples specifically about saving birds and looking at improving our purchasing process on campus. We'll evaluate some project opportunities and then have a group discussion.
Yeah, so as the resident sociologist on the panel, I get the nice job of getting to define community, at least in the way that we discussed. But I'm also curious about your definitions of community. Maybe we can get to that a little bit later. But the way that we're thinking about community for purposes of today is as feelings of belonging, connections, and shared meanings across a group, or in this case, the organization of AU. And I think this is the second bullet here is really a key point, right? That community is something that you do. It's something that you have to practice, cultivate, and build. And it doesn't just come naturally as a result of being in the same place, sharing geography or sharing an identity, for example, being here on campus or all identifying as members of the AU community. I mean, that's nice and that's an important piece of it, but it's definitely not everything, right? Research shows that in order to really create that community, invest in it, you have to do it. You have to practice it day in and day out. The communities reflect the values and moral cultures of an organization or of a group of people. And I would add to that and say that they don't just reflect them, but you can actually build these moral values and cultures through the communities that you choose to cultivate. And then finally, just this last point, kind of about the benefits of community, right? And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with these. That might be part of the reason why you're here today, right? But that communities really increase well-being and provide social support, social capital, as well as resilience for both, faculty, staff. You can think about students too, but really anyone who might be a part of those communities. And then I'll give a quick plug. So there's a really famous sociological study. I see someone might be familiar with it from the 70s by Mark Granovetter. And what he found, his argument, the title of it is The Strength of Weak Ties, right? And so if you think of community as kind of a network of interlinked people, his argument was that you can actually reap more benefits from those weak ties or those weaker connections with people as compared to those who he referred to as strong ties, or those who are more in your orbit. So to give you kind of a more concrete example, right? Yes, so like strong ties, like people who are in your family or your friends, or maybe in your department or in your division. Those are certainly, good people to know and important sources of community. But if you're interested in things like exposure to a diversity of new ideas, cultivating different sorts of social networks or opportunities, leveraging what we call social capital into things like jobs or getting to know new information, it's actually those weaker ties that pay off more versus your stronger ties. So people who maybe aren't in your department, but are in the department next door, maybe those who are across campus, right? The theory being that they have an exposure to a wider variety of experiences than those who are considered stronger ties, who might have experiences that are more similar to your own. And so I think in this presentation, one thing, we're kind of interested in is this idea of creating community, not just with those who are around you or with whom you encounter day to day, but in who are all across campus who might have a more diverse experiences than those that you might experience day to day.
So now just to connect it to sustainability, I'm curious how many of you in this room were like, oh, a presentation on community. I bet that has sustainability in it. Thanks. I appreciate a few little hands going up. There's a huge focus within the sustainability world to build community. And part of that stems from these facts that are sitting here behind me. So if you're really into data, I highly recommend spending some time on the Yale climate opinions maps. You can drill down to the county level and see what the people in that community think about a whole range of sustainability topics. And so and they redo it every year. So you're able to see how their opinions are changing about these facts or these topics over time. And so from their work, we know that 63% of Americans in total are concerned about global warming. We know that they're worried about what's happening. We know that even more believe that it's happening. 72% of Americans believe that global warming is happening, and the vast majority of those believe that it's because of humans. So then there's this disconnect, though, between what people think about and how much they're talking about it. And so last year, only 28% of people reported even occasionally seeing reporting about climate change in the media that they are consuming. So there's this huge disconnect between what people think and are worried about and how much they're talking about it. And that can lead to feelings of eco-anxiety. And how can we work together to solve those is where the community piece comes in. We also know that as we drive down and look at just a college campus, not America in general, from research that the Sign Institute did, that 75% of young Americans are very concerned or somewhat concerned about climate change. So this is something that our students are really thinking about on a regular basis. It's in their consciousness. And they're also experiencing this same problem of not seeing it in the media, thinking that they're thinking about it and their friends aren't. And it can create this feeling of isolation. In another further Sign Institute poll, the majority of young people think that it should be a top priority, and that our elected officials should focus on it. So we're seeing from the Sign Institute polling this kind of continuous emphasis from young people about how much they're thinking about it. So it wasn't just in a standalone poll, we're seeing it year after year. Which ties into this idea of climate anxiety. And so in general, when we think about anxiety as a pathology, we know that we want to go to doctors and deal with that. But climate anxiety is unique in that it is rooted in fact. So it's not a pathology. It's something that we need to deal with in kind of a different way. Thinking about how we're going to address that is not something that you just go to a doctor and figure out what your unique path forward is. It's really something that takes a different approach. There's a really great NIH review that looked at ways that we can combat eco-anxiety, and looking at inner resilience was a big part of it, figuring out how we can acknowledge, like, okay, where is this feeling coming from? It's because I think this is a problem and I don't think other people think that it's a problem. Looking for connection with others, though, was a huge focus of it. How do we find that community that also cares about this? And then how do we take that a step farther to look at action and connecting with nature with them? And so in both of the projects that we're going to talk about today, I think they're just fabulous examples of how we can look around campus, see that there's something that we think could be better, use it as a tool to basically address this whole list of things. We can help our students find community while they're taking action, while they're connecting with nature, while they're making friends, or just finding familiar faces across campus. And in both instances, I'm not the one who came up with these projects. Faculty approached me or others, and I was pulled in as they were looking for how do we solve this problem that I'm noticing on campus. And so I will turn it over to you, Chris, to talk about the first example.
Right, super. So this is not a new problem. Birds have been dying hitting windows since windows were invented. And on this campus, it has been a problem since the campus was built. But in particular, recently, with the beautiful building you're sitting in, which has an incredible amount of glass in it, it has raised the awareness of it through a couple of venues. One, I teach ornithology in this building, and I teach the students about bird strikes, among other things that are killing birds in the world today. And also, those students are sitting in the lecture hall downstairs, which has 2 complete glass walls on each side, one of them external, and birds are hitting those windows while they're in lecture. And the students were complaining to Megan and the sustainability office about that, even students that were not mine and were not in my classes. And so and I've been trying to get traction on this for a couple of years on campus. And it sort of all came together. And these students and that data, their anecdotal data, was the catalyst that started this. Other institutions, entire cities are dealing with this. And locally, campuses, including Smithsonian campuses, are also doing this. And recently, the zoo did every single glass window on the campus just down the road here with anti-bird strike stickers. You can get these in all sorts of places. Some of them are very simple. I have them on my lab windows. I have them on my office windows. You can just buy these little things that statically cling to your window. And ultimately, they're best on the outside, but you can put them on the inside too. And so I approached Megan to talk about this idea and whether we could get some action on campus here. And of course, Megan said this is something that is such an easy fix with such high visibility and the opportunity to pull in multiple stakeholders from over the campus. So I got in touch with my colleagues down at the zoo, who I knew had just done their entire campus, and we talked to them about what they used, where they got it from, and how they did it. And this is basically a small sample of all that you need. It's a clear film with just some small dots on it that have to be generally about 2 inches apart from each other. You can use lines. You can hang things on the outside, like thin rods or something like that, usually that are mobile, so they're not going to hurt the birds either. There's lots of different ways you do that. You're breaking up the reflection on the outside. Birds see the world reflected in the window, think the world is on the other side, and hit it. It's particularly a problem if you have lights on the inside at night as well, because they also will be attracted to that light. And so something as simple as this, you peel off the backing, you stick it on the window. But as you can imagine, if it comes in little strips like this, you have to apply a lot of strips to cover a lot of window. You generally only have to concentrate on lower floors, usually within 1 or 2 stories of the ground. Most birds that hit windows are not flying at height. And so there's a limited number of windows on campus. We decided to start with this building. It's a new building. We had a perceived problem. Students were complaining about having birds hitting the window. And we had myself here and my ornithology class. And very recently, there's a new student club called the Birders of AU, which I think has nearly over 100 members now. And I was the faculty advisor for that club as well. So with this coalescence, we decided to have an event, purchase these, got our colleagues from the zoo to come up here, and we spent a whole day where we just got 1 window done in a whole day. So this is something that'll be an ongoing project. But talking about the community building, we had photos here. We've got faculty involved, staff, including grounds staff, facilities have to be involved. Once you're above as high as someone can reach, somebody has to go up a ladder. And of course, that becomes a facilities job and not a student job. We had upper administrators here, the Dean of CAS, Dr. Linda Eldori, wanted to come along. We had Claude turn up, of course. They were always worried about the welfare of birds as well. Great photo opportunities, great media opportunity, CAS development, AU people turned up, a ton of students, the AU birders members turned up as well, and everybody participated. We were all shown how to do it. We all had a go at putting it on here, and after several hours, we got most of the windows down on the big lecture hall TO7 downstairs that some of you may have sat in today done. And it's quite, from the inside, it's not very obvious it's there. It's quite subtle. I guess moving forward, we'll find out how effective it is if we have less reports of this. And the idea would be to move our way around campus semester by semester, maybe using these stakeholders to identify other places on campus where we may do this, have an event, pull in those stakeholders and get it done, and progressively make the campus a little safer for this. So great example, multiple stakeholders brought together all sorts of people in a common cause, easy and incredibly cheap other than person hours to put it up. So I was really pleased to see it happen, and I'm excited to keep it going. And hopefully every migration season, spring and fall, we can get an event on campus here and advertise it. And hopefully some of you can come and help us stick meters and meters of stickers onto windows.
Great. So I'm going to talk about our kind of second case study of community building here on campus at AU. So myself and two collaborators, Garima Sharma and Nicole Darnell, both who are in the Kogan Business School, were really interested in this question of sustainable purchasing. And so our research question essentially was, how can organizations bolster their positive, sustainable procurement impact, knowing, looking at the top of that slide, right, that often there's a lot of will for folks to kind of purchase green products, take the environment into account in the amount that they consume, but there's not a lot of direction on how to do that, right? What is the way to do that? It's not embedded into our systems of purchasing. And if you think of AU, for example, as an example, it's an interesting case because, we tout ourselves as this very environmentally friendly campus. I'm sure you've all seen the buses kind of, patting ourselves on the back for being the first carbon neutral university, right? So there's a lot of will, and yet we still see some of these problems, such as sluggish adoption, implementation difficulties, and that the solutions really, lack nuance, and there's not really any actionable solution. So myself and our co-authors, we were trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here at AU? How can we improve these systems? And how can we kind of generalize what we find at AU to organizations at other places, other types, other universities, et cetera? You can go to the next. And so the way that we chose to approach this problem is through a few different research methods. So first, what we did was we wanted to interview stakeholders all across campus. So we partnered with Megan, Eleni, and the procurement department. And we basically took the org chart of AU and tried to get folks all across the org chart. So from leadership up at the top, to staff, to students, and everyone in between, to kind of make sure that different perspectives were represented, thinking that, this idea of sustainable purchasing, we're really conceptualizing it as a system here at AU that everyone has kind of some stake in and some valuable perspective on for our research. So over the course of about a year, we conducted 47 interviews with stakeholders all across AU, really, really valuable insights there. But we didn't stop there. Right. Our kind of second phase of research was to conduct kind of quasi-focus groups where we brought, again, people from all over campus together We put them in contact with each other face to face, and we had them really give us feedback on our summation of the findings from the interviews. And we went one step further, which was to ask them to kind of generate ideas for how do we move beyond this kind of academic exercise and actually start to really generate solutions about how to improve sustainable purchasing at AU. And so we held 2 focus groups, and maybe we can go to the next slide because you can see some beautiful photos from these focus groups. And you can see Megan, I think you're in a couple of these photos. I'm in a couple of these photos. But again, here we're seeing a range of diverse stakeholders at AU, from leadership to students, everyone in between, who had the chance to really meet one another, going back to this idea of the strength of weak ties, and be put in small groups with people that they probably otherwise never would have come across on campus to kind of cultivate these ideas around the central problem of sustainable purchasing. And I think in that way, I mean, I can just speak from my own experience going to some of these workshops. It was amazing to get to see faces across campus that I never would have, recognized before, hear a little bit about their jobs, and really realize that, a lot of us are facing common problems when it comes to this issue of sustainable purchasing. And kind of the 2 takeaways that we found were, we need kind of stronger buy-in and leadership from the top to kind of set the agenda and invest in these sustainable purchasing models. And then B, we need to make it easy for folks, right? So that it's actually easier to purchase green products than to not. And those were kind of our takeaways that we would have otherwise not kind of realized and realized how to implement without putting people face to face in these focus groups with one another. Okay, and with that, I will hand it back to Megan.
Okay, so these are 2 very different case studies, right? Where my office was pulled in to partner and help facilitate in some cases, or to just provide information and figure out how we could help make something a little bit easier. And so my office's role on campus is really just to advance sustainability wherever we can. So when other people have project ideas, we're quick to say, yes, let's see how we can help and how we can work together and what resources we might be able to bring to the table. So now what we'd like to do is have you all divide perhaps into groups of 4, I think works out well, to evaluate an opportunity that you might consider proposing a project or a program for. We have some questions to get you started. So who would you invite to the table to work on whatever problem you're thinking of? What offices do you think could help you? It doesn't have to be my office. I have a list of ideas in case you're having trouble coming up with your own problem. They are all sustainability, but don't feel limited by that. If you have a different problem that's outside of what you consider sustainability, feel free to have your conversation focus on that. What activity would be involved in solving your problem? Would it have a short-term element, a long-term element, both? In the case of the birds, for instance, the project itself to put the bird stickers on can be short-term, but then let's do it every semester and turn it into something that's long-term. What would be the timeline for it? Is there a lot of lead up to whatever you're coming up with? And then would there be funding needs? So go ahead and kind of split. There's like 4, 4, 4, and 4. And at the end, we'll come back and have some report outs for what you guys considered.
I'm ready. Hello. Oh, that's right. That's community building. Yeah, cheers. I'm actually on. That's right. Okay,
I think I recognized you as the one.
I think she stood on a lot of ladders. I teach yoga and I teach strategies, stress management, and my young guy in the room just facilities. Yeah, he has it. I was also graduate student. I thought it was. So it's a higher for our product. We did like a data person. One of our initiatives that we are human beings. We all had to go back to graduate classes. Particularly the conversations with iconic.
You're bad stuff.
It's interesting. Now none of us are so whatever. My background's too. Like, and then we never know. So you gotta advertise the way that like bring this in and realize
So it's like you know what they
also like this part when I was I make sure it's not statistically relevant. Students actually like why surveys are like places of strength. Yes, like it's really good. I mean, I'm curious, you all one place like you're always sort of you have things to do with the business
Oh, you do the last one.
When I have to written down, just like going circulating. Yeah, but I like just hearing about ways to example in my class. I opened pretty early famous class that I tweeted out once I've done it. And also things like I used to do and I like this is how I chose to address it. And I'm not telling you that because I'm proud to.
It's not a train. That's not a
issue because after all, it's not my issue. So I point that out what I'm doing because I want that to work. Yeah.
Well, you're also right. It's okay to have you okay, guys.
Like yoga isn't for the flexible people. Like it is, you know what I mean? People are like, oh, I can't do yoga. I'm not flexible. But like people think like, oh, the running clubs for the runners. You know, like wellness activities are towards the strength, not towards the like exactly. But it's like these types of events, they always need like food. And that's why I want like when you do fundraising work, and if there's some way to like make it a little bit fun. Right. It's not. It's like assuming we're all right. What you got today?
That's amazing.
But it's leading it, right? If we're like, here's my issue, you know what I mean? Like, as a researcher, just here's my issue. Generally, you know what I mean? Yeah. The framework of like the question being, how do we create a community and not just like having a clause that
So
it's going to be very interesting. So there is a dedicated money. Yes, and we learned that two of us actually have some orientation session we spoke out on Monday. So that was
I am actually framing it to them as psychologists. If you wish that you has an identity. What's the change that you want?
So with that, and
as like a retention question too, like what would make you stay and like how would make you proud of me? And then they
You know, if there's any research around like it doesn't matter if they have community identity, like they have all their small network. I can imagine that's like really supportive too. Like you only need like one friend, right?
Community side that has like coming out of so one of the things there've been times where from the top they just want people to try and build communication. The fear was she's like, I think it was like part of us, I guess. Those two things will not round. There was a time like I just she's like, but she has to go back into her baggage.
Yeah.
So like here's your it's been changed. I don't like to keep shifting up to you just have to exercise in this group. So that's one of the cool things about those friends. Like so that's what I'm thinking is how I
Nothing that way. I'm sure there one thing that we already one-on-one conversations, support, everyone. Unions, for some reason, I really discourage I mean, they do sometimes encourage department, but I don't know, emphasis on like one-on-one or like centralized. That's great. That's really good. Sustainability. But I don't know that there is actually like focus on like what exists. I don't mind to use this. I mean, I don't think experts are all just trying to work with just it's basically like how do you react to expectations like what needs to in between them so they kind of try to or whatever. And people are often like but not so they're like what else? Either is the portent. Most of that's probably like I try to get my straight A, I'll get your memo in on time. The trainer because you're losing money if you don't show up, or you have to join a book club. You know your friends are reading the more books, so you have to show up. You're gonna deprive the student of learning if you don't show up. And so for that reason too, having like it's actually
just like classes are free. You can get them whole self-organization together to find the inspiration. I regular that desperately had a shower with you guys because nobody was expecting me to show up. So how do you lose?
I mean, that's still like good right now because if you have lots of people.
Yeah.
So I think also there's like music.
I do want to throw out one other idea, which is not this,
So let's just do that. And then you take it to
Sorry? Oh, well, no, this is different than community. As like the class I teach strategy. You know, freshmen, seniors, it's all of that.
Okay.
And but there's, and that's the kind of community that's across discipline, across age, across race. There's not, you know, it's across athletes and not athletes. Our on-site sustainability courses, just so the campus community, whether they're like, of course, whatever. My idea is to have a alignment out there, but now we're making campus more. So I don't know if I'm the one to teach it, but
not just going to jail.
That's far. It's like a little too far.
I'm students are doing this, and we should lead and then be held up as an example. But it's whatever it's called, whatever. It's not eco-anxiety exactly, but it's that.
That's what I was wondering if you were.
I mean, strategies, stress management, which is what I teach, but I really like the kind of like action, like rather than really focusing on how anxious we are, we focus on like what we're doing. And I just don't find that. Something I didn't talk about was like don't worry about it. We're glad about it, but we're not like here's how you tie it up. Here's how you build.
We're all a family.
So anyway, that's the other process.
Yeah. If you have that feeling that it's social norms,
and it's not
in some ways,
or like
you got a little
it's not
wary about community, like always thumbs up, right? Maybe like one crazy or something. Trying to work, maybe something that work organic, and all that. I didn't put it in the presentation.
There are power relationships in families too, and that sort of gets like erased from the metaphor. It's like,
right,
I'm the child.
Right. What are you saying?
I just actually was like I read a paper on idea that even if
nobody's hired me for that.
yeah, so I was like really curious. I still have to change same thing.
We learn all the time studies filters, even though that's nice. It's more
Ours real benefit.
But you're right, maybe it's not a class because they, you know, less.
So maybe it's a series of
Right? Yeah. Or like
the community, not necessarily.
Did you like work with the university? Were you like reaching out to individual people?
Yeah. So we worked with Megan.
I did like drive. I made a bike.
And also worked with
I'm talking too much.
That's not sustainable.
So
we also did some of that, like reaching out. I think most, more often than not, people are happy.
Yeah. Yep. No, but that's a great thing.
It was harder to get them to
ours.
because they're bigger blocks at times. So
What are you going to do?
I don't see you.
Competition.
Totally.
Yes. I don't do that, but
That is your you do like internal research or
I mostly survey research. Students understood.
Oh, right, yeah.
Take away from that. I suspect the same with sort of students in two buckets. Reflection of that.
It's so I've been here for 20 years. Yes, still stop and take pictures all the time. All the time.
That's our season. That's great. So part of it is
thing on here because that's actually your question. No,
when groups of
students come in and says, "Oh, I've already done sustainability towards my ski finish," and I was like, "No." So I went to John. Like, "You've already done it." Oh, try to zero waste. Let's do that. They're like, okay, yeah, and they've all had great experience. And they're like,
so was it they
were really like taking bags of trash from DC, dump them out on tables, and resort into composting trash. And learn along the way. I was with something and I felt Starbucks like, whatever. And then they go back and they're like, oh my gosh, like it's totally on their days, or they're trying to talk like, why didn't they do this? And I answer, zero waste. Like, how are you going to get to 90% of the version?
lower than
There's adjunct influence. Yeah, like, I'm like, they're set up to achieve them. That's not okay. So
that's a huge one.
I
convinced you that I think that's a piece of it.
The kneecapping.
That's our
Oh, the first
Oh,
so, I mean, I'd love to help with that because I used to do I went to University of Carolina and it was my first job in solid production.
I hate to interrupt these really great conversations that I see happening. But we have less than 10 minutes until a dessert reception. All right. We'd love to hear from some of the groups who may have come up with an idea or at least identified an opportunity for us to build off of as we move forward. So first I'll ask for a group that might want to volunteer to share what they identified as a challenge or something that we could tackle on campus by developing community, and then maybe some of your ideas for how to move forward. Any takers? All right, I'll bring you the microphone.
Yes, fine. I was going to let another group go first because I talk too much. So we tackled expanding bicycle commuting because that's something I care a lot about. And so to start with partnerships, we would need your office. You have a history of working with Bike to Work Day, but that's a problem for our community because it happens after graduation. So the students are not here. A lot of faculty and staff are taking leave and are not here. And so the things that the city does to promote bike commuting don't align with the calendar for AU. But you already know all the right offices to be engaged with because you engage with them for that event. So where do you park your bike when you get to campus? What kinds of facilities do we have for showering? How do we, use it as a promotion of sustainability? We would also invite off-campus partners. So WABA, the Washington Area Bicycling Association, launched like 1 week ago a cargo bike library where you can check out for free e-assist cargo bikes and figure out what might work for you and your commuter situation. So wouldn't it be cool if WABA brought their e-assist cargo bike library to campus and we could try out different styles of biking without having to spend thousands of dollars on an e-bike only to learn it didn't work for you? And the other anxiety that people have about biking is like, I don't want to be out in the roads. I feel scared. It's uncomfortable. And really clearing that anxiety involves going out with a group. So while WABA's here, we can do a group ride down to SVB and back. We can get on the road together, feel what it's like, and overcome that anxiety. So yeah, those are my ideas. In short, we have, and then like people who maybe they have gear that they don't use anymore, we could do a swap and that kind of event. So a lot of fun things could be done. And I'm also super cranky about access to the showers on campus. So we would need to address that.
There are showers in MGSC now on the second floor.
Really?
They are functional and there are 2 of them. You do not. If
password,
there was an issue with them weirdly getting locked and no one could figure out why. So if you find them locked, just let us know because we didn't solve that mystery, but they do seem to be unlocked now. Would anyone else like to share in our last couple of minutes what your group talked about? Otherwise, I'll call on someone.
we can talk about our group.
All right.
No. I talked enough today.
So in our group, we talked about wellness activities, partially because, well, it doesn't matter. But we recognize that when people talk about their bodies and emotions, they are necessarily making themselves vulnerable, and that inspires empathy and trust. So wellness activities can build community. It's just the problem is that people who usually are attracted to those activities are already attracted to those activities, and it doesn't like bring new people in. So we, acknowledge that challenge that people who are already flexible like to go to yoga, or people who already bike like the biking activities. So we did talk about other community building opportunities, including classes that are cross-cutting, that aren't a certain major or a certain age, where there can be community built within the class. The one I teach is an example of that, strategies in stress management. I'd also love to see a climate resilience course, but then Eric pointed out that maybe it shouldn't be a course, but maybe like a campaign or something that's involving the activities, but not like the credits and the grading. And then we also talked about the zero waste sorting, which my classes have done some tours of with John's help as a substitute for the sort of the regularly scheduled sustainability tour. And my classes have loved it so much and said, why didn't we do this during freshman orientation? Why didn't we learn this earlier? And I think there's a lot of opportunity to expand that zero waste sorting just based on my 3 classes of experience who have done it. And that is a big community builder, because whenever you go through anything gross together, you bond, whether it's war, sweat, or discarded composted hamburgers, you bond over those experiences. So those are some of the many things we talked about. Robin, what did I forget?
We talked about the wellness tour.
Oh, and Eric had an idea of maybe in addition to a sustainability tour, maybe there could be like a wellness tour. How do we get the new Center for Student Thriving involved in community building, and not just have people who are already interested in wellness, go there, et cetera. So.
Great. Thank you all so much. I think we are at time. Sorry. Did either of you have any last thoughts you want to share?
No, just
We have
thank
1
you.
minute left.
I feel like this was a chance to get to know new people, make new weak ties, and form some community. Hopefully you feel that way too. So thank you so much for being here. It's nice to meet all of you.
Thank you.
Please take the survey. And we do offer sustainability tours to anybody who asks. So if hearing that there is such thing as a zero waste or a sustainability tour on campus has piqued your interest, please shoot me an email and we'll be glad to arrange that for you, your class, your office, anybody.